everyone, it's Nick from Breaking the Clutch. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I am starting my morning off correctly, playing some Halo Wars 2 before I go to class, and I've got a Colony gameplay here today, and I've got to say, I think Colony is starting to be my new favorite leader. I'm really enjoying Isabel at the moment. I'm enjoying Shipmaster as always, but Colony someone I've never actually played with. Back in the day, when Colony was more relevant, when he dropped around what, season 2, maybe season 3, Pat was maining him, so I didn't go that route. I took a different route, similar with Arby. I enjoy playing as Arby, even though I didn't really play as Arby too often back when Arbiter released. But now that the game has kind of opened up and there are more viable leaders, I'm kind of enjoying the variety that we've got going on. And I've got a reference back to Pat's video yesterday where he suggested that 1v1s they're kind of at an all-time high. The games that you're playing are really fun. They're really diverse. When I'm playing right now, I'm running against Aatrox players. I'm running against Anders players. I'm running against Serena. I'm running against a lot of different leaders, and I've got to say I'm thoroughly enjoying the variety that we've got going on here in Halo Wars 2, and I could only have wished that this was how it was when it launched, but I'm glad we got to this point regardless, because I think it gives us a better chance of retaining a good population when Awakening of the Nightmare comes out in just, what, 10 days, 12 days, something like that. I think today's the 19th or something like that. But the point is, once we start getting more leaders into the game and Awakening of the Nightmare comes with the DLC, so everyone gets those leaders, that's how you retain a population. It's by having a lot of different leaders that you can use, and people who have different strategies. They kind of can lean towards certain leaders, and then they can try to build off of it. It reminds me a little bit of League of Legends. They've got hundreds of characters, and you kind of go towards who you find most appealing for your type of strategy. And I think Halo Wars 2 is finally getting to that point where you're not necessarily having to pick based on meta, but rather who you prefer and how you prefer running the game. So in this one right here, I'm running Colony, as I said, and I've got same thing as always, trying to get those power nodes as early as we can. I'm getting the scout off. One thing I've tried to emphasize in my past couple videos, as well as in the next few videos that I'll be uploading, scouting is the most important thing. You'll see I saw he's got a barracks up, so since I'm going to go, I guess my mix that I'm trying to go right now is the Colony Hunter, or the hero unit. I'm trying to get some grunts out with some shrapnel mines, and I think that's going to really counter those Marines that he's trying to push out, or flamethrowers, whatever his mix of infantry is. I'm going to be able to counter it with those shrapnel mines. I lay them down on the ground right before, and then I've got those engineers to kind of be a little bit of a shield for those grunts to be able to survive long enough for those enemies to push into those shrapnel mines, and then they blow up. I still keep the majority of my grunts, and then we push forward onto their base. So there's kind of a lot of different things going on with this strategy, and I'm pumping out choppers like crazy. So it's kind of like I'm trying to mobilize as many diverse units as I can in the early game. Again, I've got those grunt shrapnel mines, I've got those choppers, I've got those engineers, I've got the Colony hero. I'm trying to get a lot of different things going, because in the early game it's so much more difficult to counter infantry. It's when you've got infantry, when you've got a hero unit, when you've got engineers up in the air defending and blocking 40% damage, or protecting your units with 40% damage reduction, and then also when you've got vehicles. So again, this is kind of how I'm trying to run this strategy. And if you guys saw in the previous Colony video that I had, I didn't opt for, or I opted for skitterers in the beginning instead of the living barrier. And in this one, I'm going to opt for living barrier because I think there are a lot of different choke points on this map specifically. And I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but this map specifically has a lot of great choke points in a 1v1 game where you can utilize Living Barrier to completely stop an enemy from getting toward you, and how you, I guess if you're rushing, which you'll see in a second, I am able to block off a route for the enemy, and he's not able to get to his base. It takes him an extra 5, 6, 7 seconds to get over there, and by then I've dropped his barracks. And on the flip side, if I see him rushing me, I can kind of block off the barrier, or I can use Living Barrier to block off a route, and then I can have that 6, 7 seconds to get back towards my base. So again, these are just things that you got to keep in mind. Certain maps you don't necessarily have to keep using the same leader abilities. I do like the diversity with leader abilities, especially with Colony. I don't particularly care for skitterers. I think I think the strategies that I like to run, I don't want to spend 220 to stick something onto a chopper when I'm gonna not want that chopper, you know, in the mid game anyways. So my plan is never to win in the early game. It's just to damage the opponent and then put myself in a position to win in the mid game. That's kind of where my mentality is, and I think skitterers kind of hinder that a little bit. Skitterers, I would assume, or I would imagine they're more for winning in the early game. But you'll see with this army composition I've got going right here, I don't really need skitterers. I've got a good amount of engineers. I've got that engineer swarm as well, and I've got those grunt shrapnel mines. Now, if I'm utilizing this strategy properly, I'm going to go ahead and put those shrapnel mines for the grunts right where the other path is. So, for instance, you'll see, and I'll point this out right here, I'm going to utilize living barrier to block off this route right here. And it's gonna force him to go around. He's gonna hit all units, and he doesn't really want to push his sentinels separately. So it gives me an extra couple seconds. What I should be doing right now is taking those grunts and moving them to the left side of the base, dropping in those shrapnel mines, and then having them blow up upon impact, and then I'm protecting my units with the engineers. But regardless, one thing I'll utilize is Colony's Hero's Taunt, and it's going to give me that extra 3-4 seconds to really get all my units focused on those enemy units. And you'll see right there, I've got a couple engineers dropping, and all of his units are going to drop like flies right there. And I think I've utilized this opening strategy pretty well. Again, scouted a couple times, got the living barrier because this map has a lot of choke points. And again, if he was coming up through that side where he is right now, I could drop the living barrier there. It would force him to go far left behind his base, or again, where he was initially going to go down low. So it gives you a lot of different options, and it gives you a lot of time, really, to figure out what you want to do with your units building back at the base, or with your units right here if it's worth pushing, you know. So you do get that 5 seconds to really figure out what you want to do. And I think 5 seconds, and I've said this before in a previous video, but having any sort of time to really think is so valuable in an RTS game. Even if it's 1-2 seconds, that moment of clarity that you have, it can really change a game, or it can change your mentality and help you win a game. So again, utilizing that 5 seconds properly is how you're going to kind of excel in these tight games. And of course, we've got a nice freeze here, and I thought I figured the opponent quit because it just froze like this for so long. But no, it's just Halo Wars 2 doing its thing, and I kind of panicked a little bit because he had air pads going up, and I was thinking to myself, okay, how is he gonna get air pads up before anything else happens, because of how quickly things speed up, and my units aren't listening, as you can see, because they're still back in time. But we catch up, no problem. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. And real quick, if you guys don't mind leaving a comment with some feedback, when Awakening the Nightmare comes out, what do you guys want to see from Pat and myself? We're figuring we're going to cover the campaign, we're figuring we're going to cover the firefight, and then the 2 new leaders. And as of right now, we're going to focus on the entirety of it. But are there specific things you guys want to see before other things? For instance, you want to see the new leaders before the campaign? Do you want to see firefight before all of it? Do you want to see the flood? What do you guys want to see? And we'll try to prioritize that to the best of our ability, because we are super stoked for Awakening the Nightmare, and we are ready for new content that looks to be absolutely amazing. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.